Well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's session. This is on the international A-level languages. We're going to talk about French, German, and Spanish today, and it's getting ready to teach that specification. So this is really meant for people who are just starting teaching it or haven't, or maybe going to teach it. So it's really a sort of an introduction to how it is structured and so on and so forth. There are quite a lot of documents that are there in the resources pack. The ones that I think you should download first and foremost are the specification and also the sample assessment materials. That may come as a link, I'm not quite sure, but anyway, I can see that it's in the meeting chat box. So you should be able to download those two documents, the specification and the sample assessment materials, because we will be referring to those a little bit as we go through. This is module 1. There is module 2, which is on Thursday, I think, where we'll be looking at the same kind of, the same qualification, but from a slightly different angle. So the aim of today really is to look at how the qualification is devised. So what is the structure of the qualification and also the content. So what papers are there, what sort of things appear on the paper, on each of the exam papers. Look a little bit about how you might incorporate that planning into your lessons so that it reflects what happens within the assessment. And obviously that you understand the assessment of the qualification. Looking also at a little bit the support which is available from Pearson. And if you have at any point, if you have any ideas that you think other people would find quite useful, then please do put it in the meeting chat because we're here to sort of help and support one another as well. So I'm going to this is a rough agenda really. We won't be looking today at any any sort of exemplar materials. There are lots of exemplar materials on the website, so you can always have a look at those, download them, share with your students, etc. But these are essentially the things that we're going to be covering today. Just a quick question, and if you are willing to put something in the meeting chat, have you, is this your first time of preparing the students? Have you prepared them before? Are you not preparing your students yet for this, but you're wondering whether you should prepare? Just to sort of give us an idea of, what your situation is, I suppose. There's no sort of consequence attached to it. So it's just sort of for our benefit. So if you're willing to sort of put it in, then pop it in. If we've got a few people there who've preparing for the first time, so hopefully you'll find it very useful. I hope everybody will find it useful. Okay, so just a quick welcome to Pearson, a little bit about the background of Pearson, which you can really read for yourself. I think it's important, though, that it prepares students, international students, for going further on to university or some sort of profession. You can read that. You should have a copy of this PowerPoint in your pack. So if you've downloaded everything, you'll see this. Okay, so there is a report. It's called a NARIC report, but the important thing for you is that they have stated that it is comparable to the UK GCE A-level qualification. So it is comparable, it's on the same level, outcome would represent the same thing. So that if, for example, your students were thinking about going to university in the UK, then that would be at the same level as their UK A-levels. Of the subject features, a couple of things really, I think it's important to say that it is a modular qualification. So this means that if, for example, you decided that at the end of your first year of teaching, so generally for the international A level, you would have 2 years of teaching. It depends, of course, on your students, but generally you would have 2 years of teaching. And in the first year, you would perhaps prepare your students for the first 2 units, and they would take the exam. Now, it is possible for them to take an exam in the November series, November-January series, and then of course they can also take it in the summer series. So if they were to take something in this winter series, in this November-January series, and they didn't do so well, then they can resit that unit again in the summer. And so it is what we call a modular approach, and that can be beneficial to some people. Some students, it may be useful for you as a teacher because it allows you to, for them to enter them for, say, for example, the speaking, and then you would see how well they did, and they could have that possibility to redo it. And always then the better mark, or the best mark, if they do it more than twice, the best mark would go forward. So the other thing I think about the qualification is the transferable skills, and there's a lot of information about the transferable skills within the specification, which is perhaps worth reading. So it helps to sort of develop in the students this this idea of being able to infer things. It's a very important skill in life. You know, sometimes people say one thing, but actually the way they say it or the words they use mean that they mean the exact opposite. And so this inference is something that's very important, and lots of being able to communicate successfully. These are really these transferable skills. So these are the sort of features of the qualification. The structure overall, there are 4 units to get to the international A-level qualification, and you can see that the first 2 are what we call the international AS. And depending on what the situation is in your school, your student could just finish with the AS. They could do the first 2 units, the AS speaking and then the AS listening, reading and writing, and they could finish there. But then if they want to go on to get the full international A-level qualification, they need to be able to do Unit 3 and Unit 4. So we're going to look at each of those units in turn and have a look at what is required and so on. But you'll see actually that they mirror one another. So the 2 units that exist for the AS are then mirrored again in the as it were, the A2 stage. So for the international A-level, AS level, there are 4 general topic areas, and I'll talk about what happens with the A-level, the A2 stage later on. But if we focus just on the international AS, these topics are actually listed for you if you're interested in having a look at that. They are in the specification. You can find those. I'm using the French specification, and it's on page 13. So I'm just going to go on to the next slide. You can see then that that there are 4 of these general topic areas, and each one of these 4 general topic areas has got 4 subtopics. And what you need to ensure that you're doing within your teaching is covering all of those subtopics. It's very important for both the speaking, and it's very important for the listening, the reading and the writing. So all of that has to be covered, and that they're of even weight. So for example, that you could have the same something like in the listening or in the reading, you could have something from the environment and travel, so that any of these can be targeted. So I know people sometimes worry about the textbooks, but whatever textbook you use, it must cover these particular general topic areas and subtopics. Okay, now if we start to look at Unit 1, so you can look again in your specification. It starts really on page 15, and there are sort of two sections to it. And section A, I'll explain how section A works first of all. Sort of before we get to section A, what happens here is that at some point your students have to decide which two general topic areas they want to focus on for their speaking test. So if I try and go backwards here, you've got these four, and all four, as I said, will appear in the listening and the reading and the writing. But for the speaking, your students choose two of these. And they prepare, obviously you will have covered them in your teaching, but they perhaps need to, well, they do in fact need to perhaps go a bit further, do a bit more research, a bit more, find out a bit more information, a bit more, there's a few more statistics, a bit more evidence. They will need to do some personal study for that. But they're free to choose whichever two of these they want. So that's really the sort of starting point. And just picking up a comment here, Astrid has asked about textbooks. I would be interested for you to, all of you, to put which textbook you're currently using. There isn't a textbook that is specifically for this qualification. I know, people use whatever they have to hand, but really, as long as it covers the general topic areas, then any textbook would do. But it would be quite interesting if you could all just write down there to help Astrid which textbook you're using. So the candidates will have selected their general topic areas. Now, if it's bearing in mind that if you're going to do the oral within the summer series, then it's the sort of the window for that starts quite early. So, sort of looking at sort of April, May, really. So you need to sort of start this with your students, or, fix which two they're doing earlier on. So they've got time to do some research. Now, there is then a randomization grid, and it looks like this. And this randomization grid, it changes every series. So if you've got, for example, there's one in the sample assessment material, but it won't be necessarily the same as this on every line. So you need to make sure that you refer to the randomization grid that is relevant to the series that you're in. So it starts then with the candidate number. So your first candidate, okay, we're looking at line 1. And you can see that, there are combinations of two topic areas. So if, for example, I look at youth matters and education employment, this is what candidate 1 has chosen as the two topic areas that they're going to do. I can then see that candidate, it says EE2A. So I'll explain that in a minute. Oops, I've got to go back. So the candidates are provided then with a stimulus card. And so for that candidate, it will be, just going to go on again, it will be Education and Employment Card 2A. So that's how that works, okay? So you need to have your list of candidates. You need to know which topic areas they have, general topic areas they have chosen, and then you can work out which of those cards they are going to receive. So you can see it says that they will be provided with the stimulus card, which has got a short paragraph on one of the sub-themes of the general topic area. In this case, in the case that we're saying, it was education and employment. Now, your candidate number 1, or all of them, but focusing now on number one, that candidate will not know which of the two general topic areas he or she will be examined on until the point of the start of the preparation. So it's not that you are able then to tell that the candidate at the last minute, or sort of in your last lesson before the oral, oh, you're going to do education employment. No. What happens is that they find out essentially when they are given that card to prepare. So right at the sort of the final moment, really. So they are then given 15 minutes to prepare that card. We'll look at a card in a moment. So they're given 15 minutes, and it has to be supervised because they're not allowed to use dictionaries. It's just really that they have a piece of paper. You can see it says later on in the penultimate bullet point, it says that they can make notes for section A up to a maximum of one side of A4, and they can refer to those notes during the exam. So at the start, they come along, they are given the card, and they sit down under supervision and look at that card, prepared that card, and they may write these notes, which they are then able to bring into the room. And at the end of the test, you, as a teacher examiner, you should collect those notes. That they can refer to them during the exam, but you should collect those notes. And you keep them until, if I'm not mistaken, you keep them until the results have come out. But it will say that somewhere in the booklet. And you can see that overall, this test, just go back a bit. Oh, no, we haven't got there yet. Okay, so for this one, it lasts approximately 8 to 10 minutes. You can see there, 8 to 10 minutes. And the initial idea was that this time would be split between the two sections. But experience has shown us, and past performance has shown us very clearly, that it's possible to do the section A in much less than 4 to 5 minutes. So typically, a strong candidate can accomplish this in much less time. But if you had a candidate that was quite slow or struggled or whatever, then you can divide that time evenly and afford them 4 to 5 minutes for section A. What is important is if your candidate, it doesn't take 4 to 5 minutes in section A, that you can then spend longer on section B, because the test should last between 8 and 10 minutes. Okay, so focusing on section A, you will have a teacher examiner book. There is a booklet, and there are lots of the cards in there, and your card will look like this. This is one from 2023. I just took any one really. This is on Youth Matters, and the card will be on, as I said before, one of the sub topics. Now, what the student sees is the picture and then the two paragraphs. They'll have les familles nombreuses, and then they'll have those two paragraphs. These questions appear only on the teacher examiner card. It's actually within the booklet. So the students, the important thing is the students, the candidates, they don't see those 4 questions. So the picture is there perhaps to help them, but it's important that your students see that there are 2 distinct paragraphs, because the first question refers to the first paragraph. And so you, as the teacher examiner, you will ask that question number 1, and you must ask it exactly as it stands on that piece of paper. You can't rephrase anything, and you can't add anything. You ask it exactly as it is there. You would be allowed to repeat it, etc., but you can't in any way reformulate it. So your students need to know that question 1 refers to the first paragraph. The information which they need to retrieve is in that first paragraph. And the other thing they need to know is that there will be 3 pieces of information that they need to take. So again, you know, they when they're preparing, they need to think about what sort of question could be asked and which are the 3 pieces of information. Question 1 refers to the first paragraph. There will be 3 pieces of information they need to retrieve. And the final point about it is that they will have to manipulate the language. It is impossible to communicate the response coherently and correctly if they just lift from the text. The passage is set in such a way, and the questions are set with the passage in such a way that it's impossible to just lift verbatim. So in order to answer that question coherently, they will need to do that. Then, the question 1 does actually state very clearly selon le premier paragraphe, but nevertheless, I think it's very, very useful for the students to be told repeatedly that it's just the first paragraph. The question 2 refers actually only to paragraph 2, although it says selon le texte, it is actually just information to be retrieved from the second paragraph. And again, it would be very difficult to lift verbatim. It will need to they will need to do some manipulation of the language. And then we have questions 3 and 4, and these are not limited now to the text of the card. They are still on that concept of famille nombreuse and so on. But they sort of broaden it out. So this is their opportunity to show a little bit what sort of research they've done. But you can see that within this, they have to give something sort of factual, and then they have to explain it. So that, you know, in your opinion, what are there any differences between a child who comes from a big family or a child that's just an only child? Explain your answer. So they need to be able to do a bit of give their own personal opinion. They need to then substantiate that as well. And then these 2 questions are linked. These question 3 and 4, they're linked to that topic, but they sort of go into more personal, their personal opinion. And you can see the final one does the same. Up you know, to what extent can a child be influenced by his brothers and sisters? Explain your reply. Now, what you will see in the mark scheme, if you were to have a mark scheme of the question 1, you would see that there is a table which gives you kind of like an indicative content. The indicative content is there for exactly what I said. It's to indicate the potential answers for 3 and 4. The answers for 1 and 2 are sort of much more fixed, aren't they? Because they come from the text itself. But the answers to 3 and 4 are a bit more varied. But what you can do when you're preparing your students for it is you can show them these indicative content chunks from in the mark scheme to give them really, I suppose, some ideas. But remember that they will have prepared for this task, they're prepared for this topic area, and so they should have plenty to say. Important to make sure, though, that you don't go too long on this, because you need to have time for the conversation which comes next. So that's really the first part. I don't know if anybody's got any questions about that, but there we are. So just to recap, important point that the teacher examiner asks the candidate those 4 set questions, and you just ask them as they are. You don't change any part of it. You can repeat it, but you can't amend the question at all. Okay, so I think that's sort of all I need to say about part A. The second section is bizarrely section B, and it is a discussion on the same topic area, and also then you can see that it moves away from the main focus of that stimulus card. And this then, because each of the topic areas, you know, has got 4, so you could explore some of the other 4, the other 3 topic areas, the other 3 subtopics of the topic area. Okay, so we're going to look at that one now. It's very difficult sometimes to move this forward for those of us that are a little bit digitally challenged. Okay, so section B, it says, this is taken actually from the specification. It says the assessment continues without pause or interruption. What I would recommend is actually saying to your student, thank you, we're finished with section A. We're going to progress to section B. I think it's important to do that so that they understand where things are in the test, because it's not uncommon for them to keep reaching back, and so you want to make it very clear. And your role then is to, you as the teacher examiner, is to engage them in a discussion which is on the same general topic area as that stimulus card. So in that case, youth matters, but it should move away from the main focus of that stimulus card. So really, if you're thinking about the the general topic areas that we had, which we said, were there on page 13 of the specification, you would say, well, that's youth matters, and it's really to do with family relationships and friendships. So then I've got to, on section B, I've got to sort of cover, or, some of these other subtopics. Okay, so you want to then, this is taken from the specification. I don't think it can be quite so cut and dry, but it says then you should perhaps cover 2 subtopics, really. So what you're trying to do here is well, there are many things. Obviously, you're trying to get them to produce their best performance. You know that they have been doing a lot of research. You will have done some practice with them, but you need to make sure that they are able to answer the questions. So sometimes the questions asked are too easy, too straightforward, and don't challenge the student. The student you feel that could do better, and sometimes then the questions are simply too difficult for that particular candidate. So what I think we're saying here is, be careful of having a set list of questions, because it's important that each student has questions, is asked questions that reflect their particular level of competence. We talk a lot about spontaneity, and the spontaneity is important. We recognize that it's an exam, and that they will have prepared certain things, but it's important then that you don't let them produce pre-learnt chunks of material. And of course, they will have pre-learnt certain things, but it shouldn't be, you ask a question and then they hold forth for, I don't know, perhaps 40 seconds, and then you ask another question that's sort of nothing to do with that one really, but launches another 40-second response. It's supposed to be within the scope of an assessment. It's supposed to be more of a discussion here, a conversation, where the student is is enabled to show what they understand, what they have learned, what information and evidence they have gleaned, and so that's not the same as giving a rehearsed speech. And as you can see, they have approximately 4 minutes discussion time. So again, bear in mind, as I said right at the beginning, that if they take less time on the section A on the card, then you can spend more. Well, you will need to spend more time because they need to reach a minimum of 8 to 10 minutes. Just a little word about the timing, really. There's no need to worry if it's 8 minutes. You know, if you've got, I don't know, say that section A took 2 minutes, and then you did something like 6 minutes. Here, that's 8 minutes. You mustn't feel that you're not giving your candidate a fair deal, because it's to do with the quality of what they say. It's to do with how much evidence they show of what they've researched. It shows that evidence of their ability to respond to questions and to use good vocabulary specific to the topic. So you don't have to go necessarily to 10 minutes. So somewhere between those two times, 8 to 10 minutes is really fine. And sometimes, with a weaker candidate, you will be asking questions from probably all 3 remaining subtopics, and it will be slightly harder going, and you may need to ask more questions. So it really depends on the individual student at the time, but it's important that the student is given the opportunities to show what they can do linguistically and to show their evidence, really. Next time we'll look at the assessment criteria. Today we're just looking at the actual sort of structure of the qualification. Okay, so I need to just make sure that's on there. Okay. So I can't see any questions about the speaking. So I hope that I have covered everything that was on your mind, and you understand that. The sort of logistics of it are that you record the speaking test digitally, and it's then uploaded via a portal. There is a teacher examiner handbook, and all of this detail is covered within that document, and you can have access to the document sometime 3 days, I think, beforehand from your exam secretary. Charlene says, could they have to describe the picture or not at all? No, not really. They can perhaps, mention it in passing and say, well, as we can see in this particular picture, so-and-so is happening, and I don't think that's a very good situation. So they could comment on it in that sort of way, but they actually don't need to mention the picture at all. The picture there is more for sort of illustration and so on. Okay, so please ask any questions. If you think about something later on, just pop it in the box and I'll pick it up. Okay, so Unit 2 is a full-on unit, because it contains these 3 different skills, and you have got, I think, within your pack, you've got an example of a Unit 2, and again, we'll sort of look at how this is all assessed and so on later on, or next week, but this is just to give us an idea of the structure of the paper. So you can see that the first section of it is the listening, and it says in the rubric that they can listen to each passage as many times as they want, and also that they can take notes whenever they wish, and they can write their answers whenever they wish. So they are really in terms of the listening, they have full control. Now, my experience of this is that we need to teach these students how to have this control, to make sure that they are progressing through the paper. So it's 2 hours, 30 minutes. they each have access to their own personal listening. So you know, we can't. It's not controlled by an invigilator in that sense. They are responsible for progressing it, and I think that does need a little bit of explaining and support, I think. So they that's, you know, for you to sort of decide. Some students are stronger at listening, some are stronger at the writing, but I think it would be useful to give students some guidelines about saying, you know, you shouldn't be spending more than X length of time on the listening. So the first listening then is a multiple choice, and what they should know about all of the questions, both listening and reading, is that the questions follow the sequence of the transcript of the text, so that if they found that you know, they could hear the question, the answer to B, to 1B, but they hadn't got the answer to 1A, then they should know that the answer will come before the part where they got the answer for B. So it always follows the order of the text. So in this multiple, oops, daisy, sorry. I've got two different mice going on here. In this multiple choice, then they will always have four options, and there will always be some reason why these words are here. They're not randomly chosen. They're chosen quite particularly because there is something there within the text that makes it plausible that it could be you know, an option. So they have to simply, on this multiple choice, they only one response will be correct, so they need to put a cross in it. This always causes a slight gnashing of teeth, because if they decide, let's say, for example, that in question A, I'm looking, you know, number 1A, they decide that the correct response is B, and then they listen to it again to check, and they think, oh, no, it wasn't B, it was actually D. So they put a line through the cross that they made in B, a horizontal line, and they choose D. That's all fine. It's what happens if they rechange their mind and decide that it was B after all. So what they can do is put a line through the D and perhaps circle B and say, this is my answer. And then that will be picked out and marked by a different means than a computer. So you should have, within the mark scheme also, you should have the transcript for the listening, so you can always refer back to that, and they can have a copy of that. You know, when you're practicing, they can have a copy of that and see, you know, for the pronunciation. I think that's often a difficult thing for them. So having access to the transcript once you perhaps have done a practice session, and then you can give them the transcript so that they can go through it whilst listening and see how the words are said, because sometimes there is a bit of a difference there. So I just thought of something I wanted to tell you, and now I've forgotten it, but it'll come back to me. Okay, so then we progress to number 2, task 2, and you can see that this also is a multiple choice. So same things apply. What you will notice a little bit is that the texts become a little bit longer, you know, that sort of thing. The third one is more important because it's different. So it says they've got to complete the sentences according to the passage, choosing the word from below. So it isn't that they can put any word in the gap. They need to take a word from that word box. And quite often they can have a look at the types of word and see that that they sort of marry together. So, for example, you know, it could be sort of hot and cold, that sort of thing. or it could be a noun as opposed to an adjective. So quite often they can see, oh, yes, it should be, to complete this particular sentence, it should be a noun, and so they can limit their choice. So all they do is write the word in the space. And again, if they change their mind, they just sort of put a cross and then write the word on top, or something like that. And then we come on to number 4, which is where they have to write. The other ones are what we sort of call non-verbal, really. They don't have to write anything of themselves. But this one says that they have to reply or answer in French, and as far as possible, they should use their own words. So there is, we would allow lifting as long as it is lifted appropriately. So it could well be that within the piece that they lift, they need to change, let's say, a possessive adjective from the first person to third person. And if they were to leave it verbatim, they wouldn't get the mark because that response is ambiguous. So we're not looking at all at the quality of their language. We're not giving them the mark because they have written everything perfectly. It's to do with the correct communication. So they are allowed to lift, but there has to be a little bit of caution there, that it could well be that there are some changes that need to be made. And you can see it tells you then that they don't need to write incomplete sentences. And that is a very important thing to convey to the students, because what sometimes happens is when they start to write incomplete sentences, then they make some errors. So I would say that they need to write only that which is necessary to actually answer the question. So no complete sentences, just the bit that answers the question. Now, you can see that there are opportunities or questions where it says you've got to give 2 details. It's important here then that they make sure that there is 1 detail on line 1 and 1 detail for the second response, because we take a policy called order of elements. We take the first 2 pieces of information that they give. If there are 2 marks, we take the first 2 pieces of information. So that if on the first line they were to give 2 pieces of information, the first one was correct and the second one was not, and then on the second line they wrote something else which was correct, that would be ignored because it's 2 pieces of information that they have given on that first line, and we will always assess the first 2 pieces of information. So it's best for them to follow the rubric and say it's 2 details, put 1 detail next to the number 1 and a second detail next to the number 2. And they need to read the questions very, very carefully. And in terms of lifting, as I've already said, they need to be aware of the changes sometimes that need to be made. And also, sometimes they can lift, but it's got to be at what we call a targeted lift. It's less of a problem on the listening generally, but it's a big problem on the reading. They get quite quite sort of intense about that. So it is important that the lift is quite targeted, and they make any changes as necessary. Okay, so that's the listening, and then we come on to the reading, and you can see then you've got 3 reading tasks, and again they increase in length. And I don't need to talk about many of these because I've already talked about the multiple choice, and then you've got one again, which question 6 about where they have to write their own responses, and it says again that you don't need to to writing complete sentences, and you don't. You should use as far as possible rather your own words. So it's the same message. The bigger problem with the reading is this lifting, that they are very concerned about. You know, can I find it? Can I find the response in the text, and can I lift it? I would say 9 times out of 10 that there will be some change required. Clearly, you know, there are certain words that it's very difficult to get round. You just have to use that particular word. The same thing applies then about having 2 pieces of information, and so there we are. Okay, and then the third piece of reading is the same. It's where they have to write the responses, and they need to just make sure that they're doing the same things that I've mentioned before. Okay, and then we come on to a grammar task. I don't know whether I put the grammar task up. No, I didn't. Okay, so you should have a grammar task there as well. And it says always that it is not necessary sometimes it's not necessary to change. So that there's going to be a mixture. You've got words in bold, in a square bracket that they have got to perhaps manipulate, but perhaps not. And so that they just write the answer. And it's worthwhile, you know, having a look at the mark scheme, because sometimes there is some tolerance about the spelling there. Okay, I don't think there are any queries about that. And then we come on to the writing, which I have put here. This is one from 2023, in fact. And they have to write a response. You can see it gives a word count of 240 and 280 words. Now, these word counts are always a problem, really. There is nothing that says they can't write more. They can write as much as they want, but they will be marked on everything that they write. And the idea of this 240 to 280 is that that's the minimum number of words they need to write in order to show that they can fulfill the criteria. And 280 is the maximum number they need to write in order to show that they can fulfill the criteria, the assessment criteria. So they don't need to write any more. There's nothing, because as long as they have dealt with the 4 bullet points, as long as they have, you know, done, made sure that it's relevant, they've addressed them, they've used a variety of language, a variety of vocabulary, that it's done accurately, all of the things that are in the assessment criteria, which we'll talk about next time. As long as they've done that, then actually they don't need to write anymore. And again, experience shows us that the more they write, the more mistakes they make. It becomes quite meandering, and it starts to include irrelevance. It's very, very difficult when they start to write more. And it's also a matter of timing. You know, they need to what I said at the beginning, allocate this timing, give them a very clear idea of how to divide you know, their 2.5 hours evenly, or between the 3 different skills. Other things to mention really is that there are 4 bullet points, and there will always be 4 bullet points, and they will the bullet points will sort of force them to do certain things, and one of them will always be something to do with an opinion. And one of them, you know, fairly sort of straightforward. One of them will be looking at the past, something in the past, and one of them will be something looking forward to the future, and something will be a more evaluative thing. So they always follow that kind of structure. So just to come back to these word counts, no, we don't count unless it's going on for a very, very long time, but generally, no, we don't count them. But we have a very clear, you know, examiners have been marking this for a long time, and they have a clear understanding of what 240, 280 words looks like. And they can write more, you know, Laura, they can write more. That's not a problem, but just saying they don't need to write any more. than 240 to 280. The other thing is that they don't have to divide those words evenly across the 4 bullet points. It may well be that they've got more to say about bullet points 2 and 4 than they have about bullet point 1. That's fine, but you know that it doesn't have to be evenly spaced. But I just think in terms of time management, you may want to think about you know, that sort of thing. Is it a good use of their time? What we don't very often see is a plan. So perhaps a little bit of time spent on writing a plan. The text is there to give them some encouragement, and also, you know, for this particular one here, they need to give a reply to the Suad who's written this. So they need to have read that text. That's the important thing. I would say they should answer the bullet points in the order in which they are given, because when these tasks are being set, they you know, these bullet points aren't just put in any order. They go in a specific order because that's the best flow of it. So I would say they should address them in this order. And there's nothing wrong, for example, with using one paragraph for each of the bullet points, but they don't need to divide the 240 to 280 words evenly between the two. They may have more to say about one particular thing. Okay, as I said, we'll look at the assessment thereof next week or Thursday, later this week. Okay. So I hope that's clear to everybody. I just wanted to bring your attention in terms of the overall qualification. Actually, there is a grammar list, and you can see this is in Appendix 6 of the specification. So this, as you can see, is taken from the French one, and it's quite near the end of the specification. So I just have to go down very far, but it's worthwhile. I would say it's worthwhile checking with your or sharing with your students really. This it's on page 60 of the specification if you're interested in this. I know it's quite difficult to go that far back in the specification, but it's useful to have a look at what you have in the specification. You can see here is straightforward structures, and it says at the top that the list is divided between the straightforward and complex, and the straightforward grammar is the sort of stuff that they will be exposed to on a regular basis. And the complex structure is well, what it says there really. And so I'll give you an example of some complex structures. It says for nouns, for example, this is for French. Apologies to those who haven't got French. But certain acronyms, so like la SNCF, they are aware of that, and certain adjectives which you know, things like une voiture bleu foncé. It says there that bleu foncé is a sort of a concept. It doesn't actually agree with the noun. So have a look at that and perhaps share that with your students as well. Okay, Christine Consul Astrid you can offer GCSE outside the UK. Yes, okay, yeah, okay. I don't think I need to reply to that. Okay. All right, so that's the grammar list. Have a look at that, share that with your students as well. And again, that's for both the IAS papers and then also for the IAL papers at the end. Okay, now we're going to start looking a little bit at the the sort of the second part. Generally, people schools do the IAS in their first year of the sixth form, and then they progress to the IA2 in the second year. But it depends on your students, obviously. Okay. Emma, I can see only part of your query. It seems to have broken off. Now, the general topic areas, these are the IA2 specific ones. But what you need to bear in mind is that for the two papers let's call them papers, the two papers at IA2, they will cover, or they can cover both those four that we had right at the beginning, the four AS ones, and these three here. So generally, when you are thinking about your scheme of work in for the second year, obviously you need to cover these three general topic areas, but you also perhaps need to revisit the four from the IAS and perhaps do some at a little higher, a bit of a higher level. That was what I would recommend. Now, there's a difference, a really big difference, which is important for the oral. The ones that are an IAS, so the four that we had right at the beginning, those are general. They are not specific to the countries, communities of the language you are teaching. Whereas these three here, you can see it says General Topic Area 5, Technology in the French, German, Spanish speaking world. They must, what you cover must be focused on the target language speaking world. So it isn't only France or Germany, it is, or Spain, it is everywhere that those languages are spoken. They're very important for this speaking test. And so you can see these three here, the technology, the society, and the ethics, those are all within the target language speaking world. Very, very important point there in terms of what you teach and particularly when we talk about the Unit 3. Okay, so you have to cover these three, and you can see there's some quite gritty issues. General Topic Area 7, the ethics, this covers the moral issues of euthanasia, adoption, genetic modification, abortion, things like that. So that's quite a hefty topic area. And then society, those things are also quite meaty, and the technology. But then, as I said, also find some time to revisit the four which you covered at the IAS, and make sure that they are aware of things at the IA2 level as well. Okay, so Emma has said, is there a requirement in the writing and speaking for students to make references or comparisons between the target language country and their home country? There isn't a requirement. So just what I've been saying about the speaking, they would have to refer to, if they were doing something from here, they would have to, or if you I'll come on to it again later, but if anything from these three topic areas is covered, then they will have to refer definitely to the French speaking. They can make they can make references as they wish. If it's a valid point that they want to make, that's fine. But it's essential for anything to do with these three topic areas that they ensure that it's the French, the German, Spanish speaking world. So I hope that sort of answers. And then Dinusha, you've said if a student fails in the second year, will they get the AS level certificate? So they could do that. Generally, depends on what the student is doing, but generally they would. You should have at your school an exam secretary who will be able to explain this to you. But generally, schools will do the AS, the International AS part, at the end of the first year of teaching, and they then do. So the students will do the 2 units, and they will just bank those. They won't cash them in. They just bank them. And then in the second year, they do the 2 International A2 units, and at the end, they then cash it all in. But if they didn't do very well, then you could, in the A2 bit, you could just cash in the AS. But that's something you really need to ask your exam secretary about. That's not really something that I'm very clued up on. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the Unit 3, the speaking test, which, as you can see, is 11 to 13 minutes, and it has 2 sections. So the section A, I'm just going to find the right place for you to have a look in the specification. So I had to go nearly there actually, so that's quite good. So if you want to have a look at all the detail of that, the stuff begins, there's some important points here to mention. The stuff begins for Unit 3, it begins on page 25. So, right, so I'll go back there. Overall, it's 11 to 13 minutes. Section A is the presentation and debate of an issue which the student has chosen, and section B is a discussion of 2 further issues. So if we're just looking at that section A1, you can see that it says that they can choose any issue they like, any subject of interest. It doesn't have to be anything from the specification. It can be anything at all. So if they wanted to do something that wasn't on the specification, then that would be absolutely okay. Okay, I hope all that is clear. What they can't choose is anything to do with the Unit 4 topic that they're going to be doing. That would, make sense. Now, suitable issues, the issue that they're choosing has to be an issue that can be debated. And the student has to have a fixed standpoint, so that if we're talking about university education being free, they must have a very strong standpoint that says university education should be free for everybody. And you, as the teacher examiner, you would then be in the position of arguing the opposite, that a university education should not be free for everybody. It's one of those things. You would, I think, would need to decide or ask your students to submit to you their issue for debate. Make sure that you're happy with that, and you feel that you can argue the opposite of what the student is going to do. But they can choose anything at all on this. And the oops, oh dear. Okay, there we are. So then the students sort of conduct their own research on this, and this is a really important point, and I wanted to try and show you where it was in the yes, it's on page 26 in the thing that says section A debate, and it's in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th bullet point. Very, very important that it says students will be assessed on the breadth and depth of their research in their presentation. So they must give a little presentation. And it says there that they, as such, they should mention French language newspaper, magazine articles, online written sources, journals, literary texts, and other suitable French language written sources that can be referenced. So they do need to provide evidence that they have done some research here. And so when they are preparing for this, I would say that they need to write down what the the names. That any written sources. It can be written on the internet. It can be whatever, but they need to write down where they got that from, and so on and so forth. So they need, they do need to keep evidence of that, and they should then mention it as well. As you can see, it says they should mention that in the French language in the introduction. So generally, this introduction is about a minute, and that's important. They need to prepare that introduction, and then you would have a debate with them for about 4 minutes. These times with the speaking test was a little bit fluid, but that would be the aim, that it would be a minute for the introduction, stating what their issue is, why they've chosen it, and showing about that they have done some reading and research. That's very, very important there as well. Now in the debate, so in the following sort of 4 minutes, they can refer to other, in this case, it says French language sources that they've used. So that can be, some sort of what do you call it, documentary or something like that they've seen on the television, or it can be some interview that they heard on the radio. But for the introduction, where they're sort of stating what the issue is and why that is their issue, then they must have some written sources that they can refer to, that they can reference, if you like. And so then it says right at the bottom that, as you can see, it says that the students have got 1 minute to outline their stance, and they have 4 minutes debate on the issue. Now, you really, if it's you that is conducting the oral, you really need to know in advance what these issues are, obviously, because you've got to prepare yourself a little bit. You have to come up with opposing arguments and to facilitate the student to defend and debate her standpoint. So the main thing is they can have anything at all for this. They can choose anything. It doesn't have to be from the AAS list or from the A2 list. It can be anything at all that interests them. I mean, actually, those topic areas are fairly all-encompassing, so I think it would be quite difficult. Excuse me. It'd be quite difficult to find something that was outside, but anyway. So I hope that bit's clear. Just before we progress, I'm just going to have a look at these. Giovanna says the topics for section A and B in the A2 speaking exam must be focused on the target language countries. Well, in section A, they can choose anything at all, okay? So it doesn't have to be on the target language country. It can be on whatever they want it to be. But if they decide that they are going to take a topic from, if I could go back here, if they are going to take a topic from one of these, then it has to be focused on the target language country, and because you may perhaps be talking about these in the debate later on, so in the discussion later on. So they can choose any topic they want. But these particular topics here, these are focused in the target language country. Okay. So then, Nasha, you said you do everything at the same time. You do it all in one go in year 13. I think your best bet there would be to speak to the examination secretary. And Charlene, you said they don't have any preparation time for that part. No, and for the IA2 oral, no, they don't, because there's no card for them to refer to. It's just they have, at some previous point in time, whenever you think it's appropriate for them to start their preparation, they will have done lots of research and made lots of notes. But actually, they can't bring any notes in for this at all. So, can they mention facts they've read in French-speaking source? Yes, of course they can. They can, that's fine. They can mention that they read in France that oh, I see, you mean if it's a non-target language country, it does need to be in the French-speaking world. So it would need to actually refer. I suppose they could refer to a non-French speaking country by way of contrast to a French speaking country in that sense, but it's really supposed to be within the French speaking world. Can two students of the same school choose the same subject? Yeah, they can. They would do their own research. They wouldn't do their research together. So the outcomes could be very, very different actually. And sometimes it's a good idea for practice that if they're both taking, let's say, abortion, one is for and one is against, so they can actually prepare together and argue together. That's an idea. Okay, so that first section is the debate. So you need to make sure that they understand what their issue is, what their standpoint is, that they are able to evidence that they have done some reading and research, and that they can reference that in the introduction, and that they can refer to all kinds of sources in the discussion, in the debate that follows. Okay. Then we have section B, which is further issues, because this altogether is, 11 to 13 minutes. So again, it says here, this section just sort of continues without interruption. But again, I would say to you that it's a good idea. This is just taken from the specification, so you can read it in the specification if you wanted to. Which is, as I said to you, on page 26. I personally would always make that transition clear and say, oh, that was very interesting. Thanks very much. We're going to progress to the next section. So, because otherwise, they've done quite a lot of research on this, and they, 1 minute introduction, 4 minutes of debate. They perhaps haven't said everything they know or everything they wanted to say. So there is a great temptation for them to keep coming back to that. So I would make it clear that, that was very interesting. Thanks very much. We're going to now progress to section B. And you can see it says that you, as the teacher examiner, you have to introduce at least 2 issues for further discussion. And it's really important that you divide that time evenly between the two topics. Well, it can be more than 2 topics, but if you think it's 11 to 13 minutes and you've spent, let's say, 5-ish minutes, you've got then 6 to 8 minutes here. So you want to divide that time evenly between the 2 topics. If you've got a weaker candidate, you might find that you need to embrace 3 or 4 topics. But if we're talking about the sort of the more able ones, then 2 topics, 2 areas for discussion, 2 issues for discussion would actually be enough. But you need to make sure that you haven't got, if it's 6 to 8 minutes, so you haven't got sort of 6 minutes for the first one and only 2 for the second one. Timing is monitored very carefully. I didn't say that about the AS one, but the timing is monitored very carefully, in the same way that a written exam, stops when the time is up. We would always listen to the sort of the end of the candidate's sentence or so, but if you're asking a question when the time is up, then we just stop listening then. It has to be that way in order to be fair. So you know, you're going to choose at least 2 further issues. Say, if it depends on the strength of the candidate. If you're a strong candidate, 2 issues is fine. If you've got a weaker candidate, it could be more. And you can see that you as the teacher examiner, you are choosing those issues for the student, and they should be unpredictable. So the student shouldn't know at all which ones are coming up. And it also says that across the centre, you can then you know, talk about a range of subjects, so a range of issues. Giovanni, you've asked whether you can discuss topics which are not related to the target language country. Yes, you can, as long as I have to keep going back. I'm sorry about this. It's not very well done. These topics here, if you talk about any of these these 3 topics, so topic 5, topic 6, and topic 7, they must be rooted in the target language country. You know, this is then a general discussion. So they wouldn't necessarily, at this point, they wouldn't necessarily know statistics on it, because it's just a general thing. But if we talk about migration, they would need to talk about if you know it's about France, then they would need to be focused on the French-speaking world. If it's about politics, it needs to be about the French-speaking world. So the ones where you can talk about anything at all, those are from the anywhere at all, are from the 4 at the beginning. But these ones, you know, moral issues and so on, that they have to be rooted in the target language country. So yes, if you were talking about music would be a general one, because that's from the AS. Okay. So sort of kind of separate those really. You know, there are two things. One set of 3 where you must refer to whichever language it is. But I'm bearing in mind, you know, it can be Canada, it can be or if it's French, you know, it can be well, actually they speak German in some parts of Canada as well. So anywhere where the language is spoken, any community where the language is spoken. You should attempt to cover a range of these issues across the centre. And this is now a discussion, so it's not up for a debate. So here you're sort of asking them, you know, what they think about things, why, and they should be able then to bring up some ideas and based on what you have covered in your lessons. They don't have to have, in this stage, they don't have to have any in-depth knowledge of anything in particular. This is just more about what they've covered within the lesson times. And then it says that the 1, 2, 3, 4 bullet point says that they're going to be rewarded for their ability, obviously, to respond to the spoken language. So making sure that you're asking questions which are appropriate to the level of the candidate, really. So are they able to cope with linguistically challenging questions, and also questions that require them to think a bit and to give some opinions and justifications. And here you can see then, just for confirmation of what I've been saying, that the teacher examiner must ensure that these unpredictable issues in this second section B, are taken from the GTAs, the general topic areas, and students at A2 will be expected to have covered all 7 of them, so the 4 from AS and the 3, and they will be able to demonstrate that they know some stuff about those 7 general topic areas. And then here's the bit that's important: unpredictable issues which relate to the 4 international AS ones, those 4 that we talked about right at the beginning. They don't have to refer to French-speaking culture, but they can do if you want it to refer them to that. But the issues which relate to the 3 IA2 general topic areas must refer to the French-speaking culture. So you need to kind of separate those two things out. And it says it, and it's an important, the penultimate bullet point is really an important bullet point that says there, that they don't have to have detailed or specialized knowledge. They for these unpredictable issues, they just need to have some opinions and so on. And they've got, as I said, 6 to 8 minutes. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. Right, so I can see I've got some. We'll look at the we'll look at the marking on Thursday. Somebody asked about the session on Thursday, and I imagine there would be room because it's an online course. So I think you would just register. It's at the same time, so you just register, and you should be fine because given that it's an online course, and there we are. Okay, yeah, so there will be, Christine is mentioning here that there is a sort of a penalty, I suppose, if you don't. So we'll talk about that. I've got some marking principles that I'll share with you on Thursday. So bring that back up on Thursday, Christine. And today I just want to sort of explain about the specification. Okay, so the final unit then is the IA2, and that's the listening, reading, and writing. As I mentioned to you before, that just mirrors to a certain extent the similar unit in Unit 2. So you've got an example of number 4, Unit 4, and you'll see that it follows pretty well, if not exactly, the same structure. So you've got these 4 listening comprehension tasks, and everything I said for the IAS is valid for this as well, the IA2, that they don't have to write complete sentences. They just need to write one piece of information on each list. Then we can progress to the reading, unless you've got any questions, and you'll see again then there are 3 reading comprehensions which follow the same structure as the IAL1. Then what you'll notice throughout, well, I don't know whether, because you've got an older one, I think, but what happens now in these reading texts, certain parts, certain sentences are written in bold. And this is to flag or help support the grammar task. So within each of these reading texts, there are little bits, because I'm looking at 2023 paper, and there I see that there's, for example, nous avons posé ces questions, that is written in bold. And the point for that is that it's going to help them within their task for the grammar one, that will help them to locate in the text where the sentence came. So what they have to do there in this grammar task is they have to refer to the expressions or the chunks which are in bold in the text, and they have to reformulate each of these phrases using the bit that's in brackets. So you can see there that they're given a phrase which is taken from the text, and then they are given a kind of a structure in bold, and they then have to reformulate what was originally written into the new structure. So it is this kind of reformulation, and so they need some sort of practice doing that. There are a fair number of these already on the website that you could refer to there. I mean, it's meant to be quite a challenging task. That I think it's a question of the practice. It was this sort of change to highlight the relevant bit within the reading text has helped. Students found it very time consuming searching back in the texts to find the bit that was concerned, and so this is actually sort of helped that. But it's important that students know what is happening, and how they have to approach it. It's got to mean the same thing. It's just a reformulation of it. Okay, no queries about that. And then we come on to section C, which is the writing, and this is where it's actually quite different to the unit 2. Here you will have chosen some significant or considerable time before 1 out of 3 types of thing. The first type is a topic. And you can look at the exemplar question 4 in the pack, and you will see that you have the option of choosing geography, or you can choose history. That's the topic. And these will refer quite specifically to a French-speaking region or a French-speaking country. It depends, what you're doing. So if it's geography, they could refer to, a specific part of France, but similarly, they could refer to one of the French islands, and again, history, they study a specific period, something which is quite notable, quite important. So if you have a look in the specification at that, I'm just going to see if I can. So I've gone back. It'll tell you that it has to be something of significance. Just wait for me to get there. There we are. I think there. So. So it says for geography, the students would be expected to be aware of key people, key events, key issues that have had some impact or are in fact still having an impact on the country, on the area, and that they look at customs, traditions, and beliefs. But it has to be a French-speaking country, region, community. And then for the history, it should be a specific period of history which has some really quite significant relevance to the country. So thinking about key events, key people, and it has to, again, to relate to a French-speaking or a German or a Spanish-speaking country. For example, I'll just take these ones first. Can they study the Second World War in France, for example? Yes, they could. It could be like the occupation of Paris or the occupation of France, or it can be anything that's had an impact on France. And Zoe says, I think. Yes, okay, that's been dealt with. And just to come to Astrid's question, does the new formulated structure that they come up with for each expression in the A2 have to be able to fit back into the text? Yes, it has to fit. They're given, if you've been looking at it, in the question paper, they're given kind of like a beginning. Sometimes it's a beginning and then an end, and they have to put in the bit in the middle, and that whole thing would slot back into the text. Yes. Okay, so let's just carry on looking at these topics. So you have these 2 topics, as I said, geography and history, and it has to be linked to a French-speaking or a community or something like that. Or then what you also have is the option to choose a literary text. This could be, there's a prescribed list in the specification. So in the specification, this starts on page 34. And you've got, you can see it gives you, for the French, it's got 5 specific authors, and they've got well, quite a range, really, you know, some sort of Molière, and then going up to the more modern day. And you've got novels and plays and things like that. So you've got a different range of things. And you've also then got some films. You've got 5 films. So you, first of all, I suppose you have to decide whether the group that you have is more in tune with film or with something written, or whether they would be interested in this sort of history aspect or the geography aspect. And then you know, you sort of make your choice really about that, what you think would be the best. And we've just had a suggestion from Christine, who said, is it not a good idea to start in year 12? Well, I mean, that would really depend on you and your students. But what I do know is that a lot of schools, they would have that, you know, the exams quite often finish in May or very, very early June, and school does not finish until the end of June, perhaps even the end of the first week of July. And they start doing some stuff then. They start looking at this topic then, and certainly you could then set for the holidays that they would, if you chose a play or a book, you know, that they would perhaps start reading that or something. I mean, it takes quite a long time, so it's a good idea to start it slightly earlier, for sure. I don't know whether people have got an idea about that. I don't know. Charlene has asked, and perhaps somebody else would be able to know that, because I do not. Says that do you know where we can find the movie Monsieur Lazare with the French subtitles? I live in Cyprus and find it very difficult to find. I don't know if anybody has got any clues about that. You should all be able to see that. Anyway, to sort of progress, there you've got I've got just put 2 examples there. One of the literature, and each time for each, so whether it's a geography, a history, or the literature, or for a film, the one that you have chosen and prepared, they will always have a choice of 2 titles and 2 essay options, and they then need to decide which one to do. The question is always in 2 parts, and the students are good at the first part and really not so good on the second part. So you will see that in all 4 cases it says décrivez, so describe the scene where Areski is arrested in the hotel. And so that's just a description of it. They need to do exactly that. And then it says analyze the importance of the dramatic aspects of this scene, and that's the bit that they can't do. But each of these questions has these 2 parts, is that where they're being asked to show that they have read the book, or they've watched the film or whatever, and that they know about that particular aspect, and that they can communicate that well. It's the analysis bit that they can't do very well. So we don't want them to tell us all the story. We don't want them to give us all the background. We want them to give us only the very specific piece of which is specified here. And then they have to give some analysis. And here the second one is we want them to analyze why is her naivety important when she arrives in Paris. We don't want to know everything about her arrival in Paris. We just want her to know a bit about her life before she went, and then why was her naivety important? To what extent was it important? What were the implications of that? And so, in general, I would say that the students find this particular part very, very challenging indeed. But I think that's a skill that, again, they haven't necessarily developed. Perhaps some of them, if you're in an English language school, they may have done English literature, and therefore they may well have started doing that sort of thing so that they can analyze. But our experience is that what in the main they want to do is actually tell the story, and they can't focus on the sort of exact bit that we need. Okay, but we'll have a look at that in more detail. So that's essentially the specification. That's what it is involved in, or what is involved. And just a little bit then about the documents that you need. Well, obviously the specification. And there is also a scheme of work. So if you haven't had an opportunity to have a good look at the website, I would definitely have a look. As far as I can recall, the scheme of work is in as a Word document so that you can amend it to suit your needs. And how do you decide whether you're going, which of these topics you're going to be able to do? Well, I think there are lots of if you go onto the IAL webpage on the website, there are some samples, and I think it would be useful for you to have a look at these samples and see how well the students have fared doing the different topics. I think it also depends on what your students are interested in. Some of them are doing drama, so they're very interested in plays. Some of them are more historians, so they are interested in history. So it's really sort of up to you. I think it's, as somebody mentioned before, that it is actually very important to start in good time and to make sure that they have all had an opportunity to read it. And sometimes you can get the film of the text, and there's no problem in watching the film of the text as long as they remember it's the text that they're going to be asked on it in if that's the case. You choose it when it's right for you, essentially. But as I said, it's quite often the case that it's chosen at the end of the summer term. So I don't know whether we need to sort of focus on many of these, because I'm sure most of you know about this, and I do want to talk about something else. We're going to talk about the assessment next time. One thing I would just flag up on that particular slide is the examiner's reports. At the end of every series, there is an examiner report published for each and every one of the units, and they are really quite invaluable. And sometimes they've got sample essays in there, and it gives a really, really good commentary. But the examiner's reports tell you what went well, what the students struggled with, what misconceptions the students had. So those are really, really good pieces of support. And what happens is, whilst the examiners are marking, they sort of make a note of all these things. The principal examiner will say to them, can you please make a note of things that the students didn't get right, and what was particularly challenging, and that sort of thing. And then that will be reflected in the examiner's report. And some of them are extended or enhanced examiner's reports where there is sample student work. I'm not going to talk about that. What there is, again, in the mark schemes, you'll see this for each of these essays. There is an indicative content, which again can help your students understand the sorts of things that would be relevant. The indicative content is never ever exhaustive, and it is only indicative. It's not the absolute only way that things could go, but it can be quite useful to have a look at that. Right, what I wanted to talk about was actually, I'm just going to go on. Where's it gone here? I'll go back, but I wanted to mention this one first of all. We have for languages a subject advisor. And this is a photograph of her, and there is her name, Rebecca Walker. And you have got here various ways of contacting her, that obviously the email. There is a phone number that's restricted to those times. If you're into LinkedIn, you could hook up there. What you can also do, which you may find useful, is you can book a Teams meeting with your subject advisor. Now, if you go onto Your Language International A-Level page, and you scroll down towards the bottom and look towards the left, you will find all of this information there. And if you click on the Teams, it allows you to go forward and book a meeting. You can also, and again, it's done on the same page, you can sign up to receive subject advisor updates. This has got, this comes out at regular intervals, and this will have things there like when the dates are for the orals, when the windows are open for the orals. But all, if there's any change to anything, it's just got a lot of general information. You can also, if it's your thing, you can join the Pearson Edexcel Languages qualifications on Facebook. You can, if you've got a query, so, like the one we just had about the film, you can post that query there. There are loads and loads of people, loads of teachers who are in that Facebook group, and they may be able to give you some advice. I know, we're talking before as well about the what was it about the, can't remember now, we were talking about something, and this would be a good, textbook, we're talking about the textbook, and this would again be something that people could share with you. And Christine has said, Rebecca is great, she's very prompt at answering. So I would definitely take note of this. Sign up for the various things, book a meeting if you want, join that Facebook group, and if you've just got a general query, send her that email. So that's a really important point. I'm going to go back a little bit then, because I didn't miss all of these things. Let's go through here. I'm sure you've seen most of this. The Getting Started guide is there for you. Sometimes it's got a bit of information which might be useful to you. The training events we've talked about, and you know about them because you're here. The subject advisor support I've just told you. The scheme of work I mentioned before, and that, as far as I remember, is in Word, so you can change that. And I've just mentioned about the sample assessment material, and I mentioned the examiner reports. There are on the website lots of exemplar marked responses, so that would be something that you could have a look at and share with your students. The past papers, well, on the IAL website, there are quite a few past papers because there were some, November series as well as a summer series, so there are quite a few. But what you can also do is just in the search bar, you can type in past papers and then put international A-level or actually sort of A-level, because the old A-level that they do in the UK, not the one that's currently in, but the previous one, that the international A-level was built on that. So you could use some of the texts for there if you wanted some more text for reading, or just general text, if you wanted something, some material on such and such a topic, you may find those to be quite useful. Exam Wizard is an interesting tool. For some of these things, you would have to be signed up by your examination secretary. So you need a password and such like. So then for this Exam Wizard, that's an example of that. And it's some people have a bit of trouble using it, I understand, but it is possible. So persevere. If you wanted to retrieve all sorts of texts on a specific topic, for example, you wanted to do lots of reading on a specific topic, then you would type in that topic, and all of the texts, say reading text from on that particular topic, would be brought into a central place, and you would have all of the past papers for that. So have a look at that if you can get an access to it. Then Results Plus is something I would mention to you. Again, this is, I'm sure many of you know about it already, but Results Plus, again, is something you'd get signed up to with your exam secretary. It's got lots and lots of information, and so, for example, a lot of the questions are marked online in any case, and so you can actually have a look at on access to script service. You can see your students' scripts there, but you can then see how they performed on each of the questions. There's a lot of information available in exams in Results Plus, and it's worthwhile having a look. And you can compare specific students' results in French with what they got in English if they do Edexcel at English. So a lot of material there. So have a look at that. Results Plus, but as I say, your your exam secretary needs to give you access to that. Gosh, yeah, I keep pressing the wrong thing. This is where you find the resources. Obviously, this is just the page, but there are lots and lots of resources there. And I would also recommend you look at the A level, the UK A level, look at their page, because they've also got a lot of resources, some of which would be quite useful for you. I mean, they've got reading text there. If you were looking for reading text on specific topics, then that would be something that you could get from the A level page. Results Plus, I've talked about that. There's a lot of advantages to that, but I would, it says here, you'll have a copy of this PowerPoint anyway, but it says the schools can sign up for free, but you need to get your exam secretary, as far as I know, to do it for you. And there you are, you can see how it works, but there's lots of information available there, very useful. And I can see Astrid has said that it's not available for IAL German. I don't know. I mean, I think it's supposed to be available for languages. I can raise that as an issue, and I don't know whether I get any response by Thursday, but I can try and have a look, because it's a shame if it isn't. Christine, you've asked whether there are any plans to review the current IAL, and not that I have been made aware of. So I don't know. I mean, if you had anything you wanted to say about that, then you could write to the subject advisor. But I'm not aware that there are any changes afoot at the moment. I've mentioned that there's access to scripts online, so you can see exactly what your students did. Again, you would need, for all of these things, you would need some access given to you through your exam secretary. There are, we talk about textbooks, there aren't any actual textbooks, but there are some student books with active books which you have to pay for. These ones, you may well have seen them at the bottom of the page when you go on to IAL French, German, Spanish. So really, it's not a textbook, but it has got lots of practice stuff if you want to have that. And you can see there I don't know how much they cost. I think you have to do the ordering through the website. But if you have a look right down the bottom on the right-hand side of each page, you'll have a look at that. I don't know anything about the a new textbook either. I mean, that's something that is raised at most of these online meetings, but I've not heard anything from it. So I think that's basically it for today. I've mentioned that. If anybody's got any questions, then please feel free. I'm just going to check through that I've answered some. I think it's talking about films. Okay, so Giovanna has said for the film Die fetten Jahre sind vorbei. That's a German one. There are just a few worksheets found on the internet. Has anybody got any information that they can recommend? Has anybody got any, does anybody know where there are any things for the critical analysis of that particular movie? If any of you know about that for Die fetten Jahre sind vorbei. Very interesting film if you've not watched it. And Lisa has suggested looking at the TES or Zigzag Education. A lot of the stuff on TES is actually free, which is lovely. They're very kind of people to do that. I've mentioned, Astrid said that the exam wizard's not available for German IAL, so I'll see about that if I can. And that's it. That's it. So thank you very much for attending today. I shall be here for a short wee while if anybody has any queries. Otherwise, I shall see you, well, virtually anyway. I shall see you on Thursday. And we're going to look a little bit at the assessment grids and things like that, and so on and so forth. All right, so have a nice rest of day and don't work too hard. Thanks very much.